Hi, my name is Nicholas Eaker, and I'm going to talk to you about Group 4's Cultural Immersion Project. For this project, we focused on the topic of gender, and more specifically, gender discrimination and the underrepresentation of women in the workplace and on college campuses. And through this, we wanted to answer the question, how does a certain level of confidence affect the success of women in the workplace and in college? According to Tony Schwartz, a New York Times reporter, only 1/3 of women in the workplace are leaders. Women make up half of the workplace but only represent 5% of chief executive positions and 15% of senior executive positions. Another study found that 30% of assistant professors and 15% of full-time professors are women. A third study found that in 1999, only 27% of women in the medical school faculty were women, and this percentage decreased as you moved up the ranks. Only 11% of full-time professors and 6% of academic chairs were women. So for this project, we watched the movie Legally Blonde. This movie emphasizes the issues of gender discrimination and gender stereotyping. The story follows the main character, Elle Woods, as she works to get a law degree from Harvard Law School. She's working towards this degree because she's trying to win back her ex-boyfriend who broke up with her because she was too blonde. She's portrayed throughout this process as ditzy and unintelligent and inferior to her male counterparts. Several times throughout the movie, she proves this wrong, and in the end, she wins the big case. This film emphasized gender discrimination that can happen on college campuses and ultimately leads to a large confidence gap between men and women. This led our group to come to the conclusion that the main focal problem is that there is an underrepresentation of women in leadership positions in the workplace, and the effects of this are a large confidence gap between the genders. For our project, we had 3 immersion programs. We teamed up with Purdue University residences, and these programs occurred in the lobby of Harrison Hall. We had roughly 5 students in attendance for each program. The first program, we surveyed the women in attendance. We asked them numerous questions regarding gender stereotyping and gender discrimination, and asked them any experiences that they had had regarding these issues. We also asked the question, did you learn about a new resource on campus that is available to women? And all replied that they had. The second and third immersion programs involved presenting resources that are available on campuses to these women. These resources included the Women in Engineering program, the Women in Business program, CAPS, and as well as numerous other resources including help rooms and free tutoring services. In addition to these programs, we immersed ourselves in different cultures by communicating and learning about these students. They came from very diverse backgrounds and cultures. We had girls from in-state, out-of-state, and international students as well. And as we learned about their cultures, we also learned how different cultures and experiences play into the topic of gender discrimination and the confidence gap between men and women. And Grace will touch more on this momentarily.
Michael Clark. I'm a forestry major, and I'll be talking about one of the assumptions we had going into this project. Assumptions that our group had during our research and at the beginning of this immersion project is that we assumed women would have many encounters with gender discrimination. Basically, we assumed that this was a topic that most women had experienced. We looked at our research from our different resources, and what stood out and helped form this assumption was some facts written by Tony Schwartz, a New York Times reporter, who said that women were underrepresented in leadership positions in the workforce. He said that even though women took up half of the people working today, only 5% were CEOs and only 15% were senior executives. We thought that since this was true of today's workforce, that this would be reflected in our universities across the country. Since this pattern of gender discrimination, which was exemplified by the lack of leadership roles women are given, was apparent in the workplace, it only made sense that this would be present here at Purdue. So we walked into our first immersion project event ready to encourage women and fight this assumption, and we realized throughout our first discussion with the residents of Harrison Hall that this assumption was not entirely correct. Yes, there were experiences that these women had that would prove gender discrimination existed here at Purdue, but a majority of the women only had positive experiences to share. We had women in majors all across the board, from engineering, forestry, and business to animal science and actuarial science. And they all felt that at Purdue they hadn't experienced a lot of gender discrimination. One of the interesting aspects of our immersion project was we were able to communicate and learn a lot about other cultures as well. During our programs in Harrison Hall lobby, we were able to talk to women who were from all over the world and learn about their culture. And we were especially able to learn about gender discrimination through the viewpoint of their own culture. For example, we had one girl talk to us who was originally from China but had been studying in the United States for the past year. And she said that with her Chinese culture and her experience living in the United States, she felt she was more respected and felt more independent in the United States, which was interesting because even though living here, we have the idea that women are treated unfairly and are treated like the character Ella Woods in Legally Blonde. To this participant in our immersion project, she felt that women here have a lot more freedom and power and that she's happy to be here in the United States studying.
Hi, my name is Sabine Nadir. I am a biological engineering major, and I'll be talking about two assumptions that we had going into the CIP project. One of the assumptions we had going into the project was that because Purdue is known as a technology and science school, it would have many sources available for its students, especially female students who may face gender discrimination. We also assumed that students would be aware of these resources. This assumption proved to be correct after the second immersion project, which was a poll on whether female freshmen with varying majors were aware of specific Purdue resources, such as Women in Engineering, CAPS, Women in Business, the Society of Women Engineers, and resident assistants at the residence halls. To continue encouraging women to study technical subjects, Purdue should keep all of its resources and advertise them so more women on campus are aware. From the project research, we learned the importance of identifying obvious gender discrimination scenarios and policies, but the key to eliminate this problem is to make everyone aware of conscious decision-making. Another assumption going into the project was that there would be a confidence gap between men and women. From research, this was found to be true, and we assumed that this would be a significant issue among students. However, we found from the first immersion project, where female students were asked about their personal experiences, that this assumption was incorrect. From the information gathered, only about 50% of female students said that they felt less confidence than their peers. This led us to wonder why this was the case when research points out confidence gaps to be an issue. An explanation may be that confidence may be due to personality rather than gender. Some individuals just may be more likely than others to be unconfident, and this is regardless of their gender. Another explanation may be that because Purdue attracts top students from across the world, these students may already have built up their confidence from their previous successes. A third explanation was proposed after hearing a Women in Engineering presentation, where one of the presenters said that she received more respect because of her gender. This may be due to the issue of gender discrimination becoming well known, which may lead employers to take it as a serious issue and implement policies to combat it. With the female students we surveyed, the same situation may be the case, where their peers and professors are aware of gender discrimination and take care to treat female students with respect, thereby increasing their confidence level, which was shown in the data collected.
Hi, my name is Liu Guo. I'm a biological engineering major. So our first assumption is about expected wages after graduation. So since Purdue Engineering graduate program constantly rank high among the national peers, there is a historical woman underrepresentation among those engineering programs here at Purdue, especially in the field of computer and mechanical engineering. rather than discuss about common dilemmas of females in those majors, I will examine how the expected wage could influence their choice. So here is our assumptions that the expected wage after graduation influence that to what extent female college students are underrepresented in most engineering and technology majors. So according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics in 2015, there was a clear trend that women are underrepresented in some of the highest paying occupations. We can see that in the field of computer hardware engineering and the electrical and the electronic engineer, almost 90% is male, which is very similar to the distribution of gender here at Purdue of those two majors. By contrast, when examining the top 10 lowest paying jobs, we do see women take large portion of these jobs. So college students all face a common challenge. They need to find a job and earn their living after graduation, and very possibly they need to pay for their student loans. Therefore, the expected wage becomes a very practical problem for them. As the result showing our survey during the first cultural immersion activity in Harrison Hall, about half of our female students feel that they had chosen their major because of their expected wages, typically for those who picked engineering major. It's not surprising that some students may not like the major but forced to take those with high expected wage for financial reasons after graduation. This may reveal the fact that some female students may not perform well in the first 2 years studying some male-dominant field, and this could also become the reason why some male peers undermine their abilities. While the finding could be discouraging, it discloses the reason why helping women build confidence in college and the workplace could be essential. One way to solve this problem is to raise the average wage of those female-dominant jobs to avoid the situation where a female picking her career path more for living than individual interests or self-achievements. At the same time, the government should support more on the welfare for those low-paid jobs. However, honestly, these are not likely to happen in decades, which means even for a new generation of women, there is a long way to go. What we can do is to support women and teach them how to build their confidence and properly handle with struggles when they might feel being discriminated. Those works were done in our second cultural immersion project, where we introduced different resources to those female participants to properly handle with obstacles they might face in a woman underrepresented majors.
Hi, my name is Gracie Inamorato, and I am a junior this year in biological engineering. And I'm actually going to talk more about what our group decided after all of our immersion projects were done and sort of what we reflected upon and then how we're going to apply it in the future and then our conclusion. So first off, when we finished our immersion project, we discussed that some of the biggest takeaways from this project, and actually one of the biggest things that we realized was that gender discrimination and the confidence gap is such a critical issue in today's society, because we noticed that having one negative incident has a way bigger impact than multiple positive incidences. So when we looked at what we were doing in our immersion events and talking to, say, 10 students, the one student who had a negative experience, that's what we focused on, and that's what we were really working through. So we noticed that in society, if there's 10 people and one person has a really bad experience, society is going to notice that one and they're going to focus on that one instead of the 9 people who had great experiences in their workplace and were respected in college and things like that. Another thing that we reflected upon was that gender discrimination and the confidence gap can be caused by both men and women. It's not necessarily a divide where men are not respecting women and women are encouraging other women. It very much can be women not supporting other women and women not supporting other men. So that's something that we really took away from this project. And that was shown in an example in our first immersion project, actually. One of the residents of Harrison Hall told us that when she's an engineering student, and that when she was working with her engineering project, she felt that no matter what she said, her group members discredited it. And she said men in her group project discredited it as well as the women. So we realized then that, it's not a problem that men have with women, it's something that all of society has that we sort of need to be aware of moving on in the future. And then another big reflection that we had was that we were able to immerse ourselves in other cultures. Just by chance, two of the students that came to talk to us who were from out of the country were actually from China, so we were actually able to gain a lot of knowledge from their experience living in China. So we were able to learn more about gender discrimination and the confidence gap issue from them, but at the same time we were also learning about where they were from and things like that. So moving on into the future, some of the ways that we can apply this knowledge that we've reflected upon is that we just need to continue to encourage and promote success in women as well as men. This class is all about being aware of differences and celebrating those differences, whether that's gender, race, sexuality, and just being aware of it, and then encouraging everyone to do the best that they can and being a polite and kind person. So with that, the men in our group decided, something that they could do in the future was just to continue valuing and respecting women's contributions and ideas in college and in the workplace. Just being aware that this is an issue is important for them to know that, sometimes women might need an extra confidence boost and just to make sure that they're being heard and not silenced in group projects or anything. And then we also, the women in our group said that in the future we just need to continue to support and encourage other women in their success. So like the resident that we talked to had said that she felt that other women weren't supporting her, we realized we need to be supporting other women as well. And then also one of the big things that we took away and something that can be applied in the future is that every culture handles different topics differently. So that's something that's important for us to take away, working in teams in college as well as going to be working with other people from different cultures in the workplace, is knowing that people are different, people have different backgrounds, and they handle different problems differently. So just being conscious of that and remembering that that's okay and that's something that we should be celebrating. So in conclusion, our group decided that we recognize the confidence gap and gender discrimination is a problem that cannot be easily solved. It's not something where we can wave a wand and this problem disappears. So we just need to be aware of that, and that it's something that personally I think we can all have a big impact just ourselves, making sure that we're polite and respectful and encouraging other women. And also one of the big conclusions is that this project allowed us the opportunity to immerse ourselves in other cultures while learning more about our particular topic, which in this case was gender discrimination, which is something that's important to take away, and that's one of the big things that we can take away from this project as well as this class, is that we were able to learn about this topic, but also other cultures as well.